This newscast is brought to you by Qberg, Pittsburgh's source for LGBTQ plus news and community information. To learn more about Qberg, check out their website at Qberg. That's QBURGH.com. These are the stories we are covering at this hour. LGBTQ plus org convinces judge to block Trump's freeze on federal DEI funds. A federal judge has issued a 30-day restraining order on President Donald Trump's attempt to ignore federal law and freeze trillions in federal funding to alleged diversity, equity, and inclusion and accessibility initiatives. While Trump issued the freeze to stop funding initiatives that advance Marxist equity, transgenderism, and Green New Deal social engineering policies, the freeze has prevented numerous social service organizations from accessing pre-allotted funds for various programs, including healthcare, childcare, emergency shelters, food assistance, scientific research, workforce trainings, and much more. The judge's order came in response to a multi-party lawsuit filed by Democracy Forward on behalf of several organizations, including SAGE, a national organization advocating for LGBTQ plus elders. Last week, Matthew Vaith, the acting director of Trump's Office of Management and Budget, an office that oversees every federal agency's spending, issued a memo directing all federal agencies and departments to temporarily pause all activities related to obligation or disbursement of all federal financial assistance. The use of federal resources to advance Marxist equity, transgenderism, and Green New Deal social engineering policies is a waste of taxpayer dollars that does not improve the day-to-day lives of those we serve, wrote Vaith, adding that the pausing of all federal grants and loans was necessary to ensure that all spending conformed to Trump's political agenda. However, Vaith's vague memo caused widespread confusion and panic from organizations that suddenly found themselves frozen out of the federal disbursement portals and without funds to continue their work, even if the organizations had no direct involvement with DEI, accessibility, Marxism, trans issues, or preventing climate change. Democratic attorneys general in 22 states filed lawsuits against Vaith's order. New York State Attorney General Letitia James called Vaith's directive reckless, dangerous, illegal, and unconstitutional, according to Reuters. Democrats and other independent organizations called the funding freeze illegal and unconstitutional because Congress had already passed laws authorizing the funding, and a president cannot simply revoke or refuse to follow congressional legislation just because they disagree with it. In her 30-page ruling, U.S. District Judge Lauren Alican noted that numerous organizations still cannot access their legally allotted government funding, even though Vaith formally rescinded the memo last week after a widespread outcry. In other news about Meta, a disabled transgender college student who was bullied by conservatives on social media because of his disability and trans identity has had his accounts on Instagram and Facebook banned because they allegedly broke the rules on community standards on child sexual exploitation, abuse, and nudity. The student is an adult and was not being abused. Micah Leroy is a student at the University of Minnesota who has cerebral palsy. He has been out as transgender since he was 14 and has documented his transition on Instagram and gained a following. Cognitive issues are possible with CP, but many people with cerebral palsy don't have problems with cognition. Leroy has said that he is making his own medical decisions, which he has a legal right to do since he's an adult. Last month, he posted a shirtless picture of himself after getting top surgery, which is something a lot of transmasculine people do after top surgery, to show off their new chests. This led several major anti-transgender influencers, including Ollie London and Riley Gaines, to express their outrage that a disabled person was able to get gender-affirming care. Misgendering Leroy, London said that doctors cut off the breasts of a disabled woman with cerebral palsy to turn her trans. Gaines claimed that Leroy is nonverbal, even though he can communicate with written language and with the help of a speech generating device, as well as his own voice if people who know him well and understand his voice can help translate. Then, to make matters worse, Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene, and I despise this woman, called his surgery criminal, sharing London's post. What doctor did this? What hospital allowed this? Who paid for this? She wrote on X, even though an adult getting surgery he wants is not illegal or even unusual. You know, Representative Greene, we could ask all the same questions about you. Conservatives rallied against Leroy and reported his account, according to The Advocate. Leroy's Instagram and Facebook accounts are offline, and he is just getting a message about how he violated the rules on child sexual exploitation, abuse, and nudity. I am the one who is posting, and I'm over 18. Leroy said that he's been telling Meta, the company that owns both Facebook and Instagram. He said that his appeals had been rejected. Even with all the hate that is stirred up, I do believe that any publicity is good publicity in furthering my goals, Leroy said in a video with Minnesota Public Radio. This experience has only made me want to speak out more about disabled and trans issues, as the negative responses I got have shown a side of the world that is intolerant and discriminatory based on what they perceive others can and cannot do. In a separate interview with the Daily Mail last month, Leroy was just as upbeat about the bullying he was facing online, saying that he hoped that anti-trans people would learn something. Pardon my swearing, but I'm going to go right ahead through this next paragraph and just say it. And this is a quote. I want to blow up the internet because I want to help other people who are trans and disabled know that it's okay, he said at the time. I want people to keep their minds open and not be bigots. People with disabilities are able to do whatever they fucking want. Greene is one of the most anti-trans politicians in the United States. She has introduced legislation to ban gender-affirming care for transgender teens, with a bill that would also make it harder for transgender adults to access gender-affirming care. Be sure to download the Live 365 app to take Pep Radio with you wherever you go. If you would like to donate to Pep Radio to support the work we do, go to the homepage on the Pennsylvania Equality Project website at paequality.com. That's the news at this hour. Here's more music on Pep Radio.